Good afternoon. My name is H, and today we'll be presenting a political broadcast on the subject of gun control. I am joined by my famed colleague A. How are you doing today,
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
A? I am well.
That's good. I too am well. All right. So today we're going to talk about a little bit about the Second Amendment, some stuff about gun-free zones, and the ideas about our opposition.
We also want to emphasize that we do appreciate your opinion as well. So would you please leave any opinions you may have in the comment section? We will graciously read through them and try and respond as best as we can. Now, for our first topic, we want to talk about what the Second Amendment is. It was issued as a part of the Bill of Rights as a way of guaranteeing the basic rights of every American citizen.
What it is it was originally intended to keep the American people well armed and well capable of maintaining the security of America, basically just protecting themselves from an oppressive government, which is something we kind of see today. The absence of a state government and an absence of a people-controlled state. Today we see a lot of government where it's a lot of federal law, especially coming down on the state. So just going back to a basic principle of the Constitution is using the Second Amendment and knowing it and using it correctly. So
the biggest key of the Second Amendment is it was not passed for people to just be radical with their guns. It was passed as a way for them to stand their ground against people who would preserve on their lands, which back in the time would say if a Native American would come and attack your property, or a group of rogues. Nowadays, the meaning can be altered because of how people act with their guns in such reckless ways, but it also basically boils back down to the point of being able to protect your life, liberty, and property through that self-defense.
now today you have standard ground laws, such as actually they're all over in the United States, and there's actually an example of a Florida woman who was actually using one of these standard ground laws, but I don't believe that the law actually existed in Florida yet. So when she was actually being attacked, and when she tried to ward off this attacker, she fired a few shots into the air, which was illegal in the state of Florida. So actually getting most of these laws that are good for the people are actually important to today and what we're trying to do in modern politics.
The big key about making guns necessary is that A, as my colleague said, we want to stand your ground. We don't want people to encroach upon our rights and liberties. Also, it's a basic right of the people to own property. Gun is property. The actions of a gun can be constituted directly back to the user. That is a big misconception that guns kill people. No, people kill people. A gun is simply an instrument used to kill people, and proper use of that instrument is done through education and evaluations to prove that they are fit to maintain such an instrument. Also, a big reason guns are necessary is it prevents an oppressive government, because if a government is trying to encroach upon a people and run a totalitarian state, it gives the people a way to keep them in check. Like, it keeps the possibility of rebelling a good idea. If the Americans did not have guns back in 1776, there is no plausible way we could have warded off the British from our state.
As we reflect on history, we can look back on multiple examples, such as communist China, the formation of a communist, Marxist-inspired Russia. When you have mass genocide created by a government of totalitarian leaders, it just creates a mess. So I believe when the founding fathers created the laws that were supposed to keep the American people free, they were really looking at the idea mainly based on European powers, and being able to not fall under that oppressiveness that we find in these European examples. So
now we want to go through each of the examples of that people argue against for gun control. One of the biggest things that people have is through mass shootings. A recent example can be found in San Bernardino, California on December 2nd, 2015, where 14 men were killed and another 22 seriously injured. Now, we want to cite that as an example because it's a national tragedy, of course. A Planned Parenthood clinic was gunned down for no apparent reason. But it is safe to assume, say that someone at that Planned Parenthood clinic was armed, that shooter would not have gone as far as they did. So instead of trying to ostracize guns for it, we should increase guns so people can protect themselves, which goes back to standing their ground. You could help, you can save the people you care about, and you could save yourself. That's a big, big one. And you could also look back to Aurora, Colorado on July 20th, 2012, where 12 people were killed and 58 were injured in a mass shooting during the Dark Knight Rises midnight premiere. Again, if someone in that audience was armed, that shooter would not have gotten far as they did. We should not be trying to demean guns. We should be trying to increase them and educate them, because laws won't stop criminals from breaking the law.
Now, and this problem, Mr. H, isn't actually just a problem in America. We see this in Paris multiple times. Most recently, with I remember it was a Friday attack. I don't know exactly the date, but there were easily over 150 people who were killed. And you also have the Charlie Hebdo attack, which was kind of played off by the media. Um, you had armed shooters running rampant through the streets of Paris, and the only thing the people were able to do, they weren't able to shoot back. They were able to shoot video. That's literally all the government enabled them to do. So as you have 12 people who were killed and 20 people who were injured, because the only thing they could do was watch, which is what the Second Amendment is trying to prevent. A lot of people oversee that element of the Second Amendment, but because people won't listen, especially with gun-free zones. A common misconception is that gun-free zones want to stop them from doing illegal activity, but a person who's set on doing something illegal isn't going to stop when they see a sign. The only thing a sign is doing is keeping the people inside from being safe. It's actually doing the opposite. For some reason, it's hard for people to understand that. It's not going to stop someone, and it won't stop someone from protection. That's the whole point of it, and it's a very flawed concept. So I think that basic principle is being lost in our society.
Now, people may also argue just ban guns completely, restrict their sale. That is again faulty. I can cite a historical example with England's 1996 ban on handguns. It reduced firearms drastically, but it led to a rapid crime rise over the next 3 years because people couldn't protect themselves. People knew that these innocents were vulnerable now. They could take advantage of them, so they did. They took every opportunity they could. So banning guns completely, it doesn't stop illegal activities. Laws will not stop people from breaking the law. Now, I'm not advocating for anarchy or anything, but I'm saying if someone's going out there on a limb to assault others, they're not going to regard whether or not a gun is legal. They're going to acquire the gun and they're going to use it. But now you're going to put the innocents in a defenseless position. They will have no way to protect themselves. It is sickening because that's something people cannot grasp, okay? Seriously, they need to learn that restricting guns prevents the innocent from having their fighting chance.
It leaves the innocents defenseless, actually, Mr. H. And I totally agree with you. But it was actually a statistic on gun laws that was done for both California's strictness, and there was a comparison done I don't recall the exact nature of the study, but it was done between the cities of Houston and Chicago, and you had all the demographics, and they were very very similar. All the breakups of the different type of people in both cities. The only difference was the fact that Chicago, a Democrat liberal controlled city, um, it has massive amounts of gun violence and zero places where people can buy guns, which really thwarts the idea that having no gun stores means no shootings. I believe there were over 1,800 of them in Chicago alone, gun-related incidents. And then when you look at Houston, the same demographics, you had over 1,500 gun stores, places where people could buy guns, and you had in the 200s gun-related incidents. So people could say it's a cultural thing, it's an income thing. When you really look at it and you really break it down, it's a gun thing. If you have the right people owning these guns, it's not going to be as much of a problem as you think it is. I mean, I think in our modern society, we're overthinking the ability of the right people to own these firearms. So And regarding California's strictness, these policies, like my colleague here just said with the San Bernardino shooting, going back to this, if somebody had the ability to fight back, which California prevented them from being able to do so. So, I think that's definitely a problem, Mr. H, um, in our society today.
I definitely think that people need to realize that it just cannot be said enough how much that taking guns away from people in general, it just doesn't work. The concept of passing laws to get guns banned, it does not work because delinquents are still going to find a way to get those guns and they're still going to do what they have planned. But this at least gives us a fighting chance against them, which is exactly what the founding fathers thought when they drafted that Second Amendment. We really appreciate all the love you're giving us because I get it, we're new and we're here and our views may be seen as conservative, but seriously, we do encourage civilized debate. We will try and respond to every comment we can, and we really do appreciate the support on this video. Please look in the forward for future videos on other social topics such as welfare and the state of the 2016 presidential election. I am H signing off.
I'm A signing off.
And we will see you next time on Real Talk with A and H. Thank you.